What's up, everybody? Dr. Ray, and in this video, I'm talking about what is the metaverse and what is it going to take for the metaverse to be a success. Now, a few disclaimers. It's May of 2022. If you're watching this video in like 2023 or even next month, everything that I'm saying here could 100% change with like a huge announcement, big revelation, all that kind of stuff. So please know that. Don't comment in like a year from now and be like, that didn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, of course it didn't make sense at the time. Like now when we're looking in the future, because I'm predicting right now, I could predict something that's incorrect. So please be aware of that. First disclaimer on the video. All right, so let's see. So first thing, what is this metaverse thing? What is the metaverse? What is it? What is the metaverse? You hear this word, it's like a buzzword. Like, I'm going to get like some venture capitalists to like invest in me because I use the word metaverse in my company, right? Like that's what people are doing. That's metaverse. So, but what is it really? So what I did is I started to poke around the internet to find out, well, how are people actually defining what the metaverse is? And what I found is that like everyone's defining it differently. So that was kind of strange. So what am I finding? So first of all, I went to Wikipedia because that's like probably what like most people accept the metaverse as is what like Wikipedia. And I have like my own definition in my head too. So like, you know, and I'm like in tech, that's like what I teach is like tech stuff and I like follow all tech stuff. So I should know like in my head what it is anyway. All right. So according to Wikipedia, the metaverse is a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single, universal, or immersive virtual world that is facilitated by the use of VR and AR headsets. Hey, guess what? That's what if I had to like pick what the metaverse was, I'd probably like pretty close to that as well, like in my head. Like one immersive world where kind of like everything is there. We have plenty of examples of this, and I'm going to talk about that. But I poked around a little bit to see what like other places were saying, and I found some interesting stuff. Like according to Wired magazine, most people just have a bunch of different definitions, and really it comes down to the metaverse is simply cyberspace. I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, we call it cyberspace. And then there are other people that are like, whoa, Roblox is a metaverse and World of Warcraft is a metaverse. It's been around for God, like 15, 20 years now, like forever, right? I mean, I've been playing WoW for forever. I've even heard people call Epic Games a metaverse. People are describing it as the oasis. If you've read Ready Player One, or I guess if you saw the movie, which wasn't very good. The book was really good. The oasis in Ready Player One, which is basically the Wikipedia definition. Then I've seen these depictions everywhere, like images. And let me just flip through some of these images up on the screen. You can see how different people are like depicting or trying to define what the metaverse is. And they got like all these cool pictures of like a bunch of different companies, like all in like circles and like things coming together and like describing like the metaverse will encompass all these things. When I start to look at these pictures and hear all these definitions, I say to myself, wow, this isn't very clear. Now I have a PhD and I'm like reading this and I'm like, if I can't understand this and I'm like in the tech industry, like are other people getting it? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does all this mean? Are we just literally like, are we just talking about the internet? Like in some ways I'm like, I feel like we're just describing the internet that we already have. Like I look at these pictures and I'm like, whoa, we already have all that. That's like you just like categorize the internet. Is that all you're doing is categorizing the internet? And I think like that can't be it because, you know, we do have some examples of virtual worlds that are very successful, like Roblox, WoW, and, you know, like, so there are these examples of this that are doing really well. But when I picture the metaverse, you know, I do picture what's in Ready Player One. For those of you that aren't familiar, in the early 2000s, a company tried to create what we now define as a metaverse, and they called it Second Life. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Second Life, and I'll put like a picture of it up on the screen, but basically it was like a version of The Sims where there were just other real people in it. It was called Second Life, and it was basically like a second life. You could like own a piece of property and like sit down in your property and like drive a car and like buy clothes and talk to other people. And companies were nuts. It was like man, if you just mention like, hey, we're having a conference and we're going to be in Second Life, or like, hey, I'm teaching a class and we're going to be in Second Life tonight, people would like go, I mean, people were like going wild, like you were like a rock star. Like, I mean, seriously, it's like Guns N' Roses just got up on the stage and like Slash is like slamming on his guitar, like, because Second Life. And companies were like, man, Coke, Mercedes, Nike, you name it, they were in Second Life. It was like the thing to do. I wouldn't be surprised there was like a Super Bowl commercial about Second Life that year. There was the first millionaire made in Second Life. People were like selling clothing in there and all kinds of crazy stuff. And every person who went into Second Life would go into it and be like, huh, this is really boring. There was literally not, you would like go in for a conference or like go see like the Mercedes area or IBM area or whatever it was. And you're just like, what is this? Like, why am I in here right now? Like scratching your like chin. You're like, huh? So I'm in this, I'm looking at this like room and it's like, why am I here? And the reason I bring up Second Life is because Second Life failed. Now, why did Second Life fail? Second Life failed because there was no reason to be there. Why did you have to have a conference in there? Why did anyone care to have a conference in there? We weren't using it for what it was. There was no game. It wasn't like I was like, you know what, this is World of Warcraft that I keep going in to go in like the next raid or like do better my raid progression and my guild. There was none of that. So it was like I wasn't going to continue to go into it. It was really boring. And like, who wants to go? Like, IBM isn't fun. Like, Nike isn't fun. Like, World of Warcraft is fun, but like, why is Mercedes the company fun? Unless I can like race their cars in like, Forza or something. Like, it's not fun just to go look at, like, why? There's no game there. And what I think is happening, I think what I'm starting to see right now is I'm seeing things on LinkedIn. People are like, I went into the metaverse and visited whatever. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean you went in like virtual reality? Like you put on like an Oculus Quest headset and like went in like just a virtual world that like we've had for, I don't know. I got my Quest development kit like 10, 12 years ago or something like that. Like, is that what it means? Like you just went into a virtual world or like a virtual world connected to the internet? I mean, that's like, we had that in Oculus Quest a long time ago, like Rec Room. I'm connected to like other players. What does that mean? And I'm starting to be really reminded. So what I'm seeing the metaverse as is the metaverse just, people are using it to describe any form of virtual reality. I'm seeing like gamers and tech people just be kind of like blowing it off and being like, they're literally just describing the internet, or they're trying to reinvent Roblox. And then I'm seeing people who like they went in virtual reality and they're like, this is the metaverse. And then what I'm starting to see, which is also weird, besides people like saying they went into the metaverse, and I'm like, there's a metaverse? Like there's no such thing as like just the Oasis in Ready Player One yet. Like someone can create like their own like VR system, but like, is that what we're defining as a metaverse? And then I'm starting to see like some weird things. Like I got an email, this was actually last week, and I posted it on LinkedIn. Like my bank invited me to come into the metaverse to visit them. And I was like, that sounds like painful. That literally sounds like the worst possible thing a human could do is visit a bank in a metaverse. What does that even mean? Like, dude, I want to like fight dragons in a metaverse, like shoot laser guns and hold like a lightsaber. I really don't want to visit my bank. And what is the purpose of visiting my bank in a VR environment? I just need to log in and like pay my bills. Like, who wants to visit a bank in a metaverse? And I'm thinking like flashback to like in front of my eyes, I'm just seeing like Second Life, we've reinvented Second Life. And I'm like, oh my God, like that can't be the metaverse because that's going to be terrible. Then I'm seeing people talk about like crypto and all this other stuff. And it got to the point where I'm like, no one's really defined. Everyone's like got like a little different take of what this thing is. No one's describing it, which is like a terrible business like plan or something. Like you can't describe it. And I'm also thinking like maybe the metaverse is just simply, people are saying, referring to it as virtual reality. Other people, it's like simply just the internet. And then I'm hearing weird things of people who are like, well, you know, you'll be able to use NFTs in the metaverse and like you'll buy a skin in World of Warcraft and be able to use it in like Call of Duty or something. And I'm like thinking in my head, like, I don't think you know how programming in games work, because it does not work like that. I can't buy a skin in World of Warcraft and put it on my Call of Duty character unless Blizzard decides to make those things cross-compatible. And they do own both of those companies. But like that, I mean, I'm hearing like some crazy stuff, especially as like the NFT crypto discussion comes into the conversation of the metaverse. So what are my thoughts? My thoughts are that overall, the metaverse is a big buzzword. That's it. I think it's a buzzword. I think we are recreating Second Life, which failed because it was boring. I think that we have some big ideas that maybe we could recreate the Oasis in Ready Player One, which I think is probably what the end goal, what Meta/Facebook sees. But I don't know if people are going to buy into being into a Facebook metaverse. First of all, it would, I mean, and it has to revolve around a game. Like, I almost feel like you're better off taking Roblox or World of Warcraft and starting from there as the metaverse than trying to start from this boring, like my bank in it. Because no one's going for that. But I'm telling you, like, I'm going to conferences now. And the conferences that I'm seeing are all starting to advertise the metaverse. That's where I started to see it in Second Life. And I'm starting to see like the LinkedIn posts about like, I went in the metaverse today and had like a discussion with someone. And I'm like, what does that mean? You went in the VR and talk? Or like, I'm starting to see like just weird things like that. Like, oh man, when my bank sent me that was like the end of it. I was like, I lost it when my bank sent me like, oh, that sounded like the worst thing in the world. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts on what the metaverse is. And if the metaverse is going to work, it's got to be built around a game, a gaming system, gamified. If we want to say it has game elements, like what's the definition of gamification, or it's going to be a game itself, or a place to build games like a Roblox, that's where it's going to succeed. That's where we're going to see the community. Otherwise, people aren't going back to it. I don't like visit my bank every day. Every time like I get a check and have to go to my bank, it's like torture. Because they won't let me take the picture sometimes because it's like too high of an amount. That's the only time I want to see my bank or go to my bank. I never want to contact or have any contact with my bank except to see how much money I actually have in it. Unless that's a negative balance, then I do not like my bank. So those are my thoughts about the metaverse. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear what you have to say. Comment down below and I'll try to respond to you. But I'm really curious what other people are thinking. And again, disclaimer. It's May of 2022. Next month, we could have like this, someone could release like the most beautiful thing in the world. And my whole thought process, this whole video will be nonsense. Later all.